Chapter 1. The Village. Forgotten by Time. I had been traveling through the Carpathian Mountains for what felt like an eternity, following a trail older than memory, worn into the earth by countless feet that may have belonged to men long dead. The peaks rose jagged and silent, their dark silhouettes cutting the horizon like the teeth of some colossal beast. The wind blew with an almost sentient insistence, carrying the scent of pine, wet earth, and a faint, acrid tang I could not place. As dusk fell, the fog thickened, creeping down the mountainside in ghostly veils, curling around the gnarled roots of trees and clinging to the jagged rocks like smoke from some invisible fire. Through this suffocating mist, I glimpsed the village, a cluster of darkened roofs, barely discernible in the grey gloom. It seemed abandoned, yet stubbornly persistent, as if the earth itself refused to let it vanish entirely. The buildings, constructed of timber, blackened by centuries of rain and frost, leaned at impossible angles, and their windows gaped like empty eyes, reflecting nothing but the encroaching darkness. Narrow streets twisted unpredictably, choked with weeds, fallen stones, and the skeletal remains of fences. There was no sound save for the wind, yet it carried a weight, a palpable pressure, as though the village were alive in some sinister, slumbering way. Even before stepping inside, I sensed the eyes of the place upon me. The fog parted briefly to reveal crumbling walls carved with strange symbols, half eroded by time, yet unmistakably intentional. Each stone, each plank of timber seemed to hum with the memory of lives long vanished. My heart pounded, not from exertion, but from the uncanny sense that I had trespassed upon a realm not intended for the living. I could not yet know that the village held secrets older than the mountains themselves, waiting patiently, eternally, for someone foolish enough to uncover them. Chapter 2. Echoes of Lost Souls. The deeper I wandered into the village, the thicker the fog became, curling around broken doorways and rusted gates. Every step echoed unnaturally, as if amplified by unseen walls. Then came the murmurs, soft, urgent voices, rising from the cobblestones and timber alike. They were not carried by the wind. They seemed to emerge from the very fabric of the place. The tone was sorrowful, yet insistent, a language I could not understand, yet somehow comprehended as despair, warning, and longing all at once. In the center of the village stood a chapel, its steeple pointing like a skeletal finger toward the sky. The bell was long gone, leaving only a hollow echo in the empty interior. The door was carved with figures unlike any I had ever seen, humanoids with limbs askew, faces blurred or multiplied, caught in some eternal torment. When I pressed my hand to the wood, a tremor passed through me, as though something had acknowledged my intrusion. Around the chapel, the remains of houses leaned precariously, their roofs sagging under the weight of centuries. I could hear distant scraping, like fingernails over wood, though no living thing was visible. Shadows pooled unnaturally, stretching and shrinking as if breathing. The air felt heavier, thick with the memories of the villagers, as though their vanished lives had left a residue that could not dissipate. A growing unease gripped me. These people had not merely fled, they had been consumed, absorbed into the village itself, their souls trapped in a liminal space between life and some darker reality. Chapter 3. Labyrinth of Stone and Mist. Night descended without warning, swallowing the mountain peaks and the last remnants of twilight. The village became an incomprehensible labyrinth, its streets shifting subtly with each step, guiding me deeper into its heart. Trees at the edges of the settlement leaned inwards, their branches creaking and twisting as if alive. Roots snaked across the pathways like serpents, threatening to trip the unwary. Every turn I took seemed both familiar and alien, as if the village itself were reshaping itself around me, testing me, trapping me in a design older than human understanding. Figures appeared in the fog, tall, gaunt shapes draped in tattered garments that fluttered without wind. Their faces were obscured, as if blurred by some unnatural lens, but the faint glow of eyes, pale and spectral, betrayed intelligence. They followed silently, vanishing when confronted directly, yet their presence pressed against my mind, a slow, unyielding pressure that whispered dread into my thoughts. In a clearing, I stumbled upon remnants of a communal square, overgrown with weeds, stones cracked and slick with moss. At its center, a shallow fountain had long ceased to flow, but water, or something like it, pooled darkly at the bottom, reflecting an image that was almost my own, yet subtly wrong. The village seemed alive, not in the familiar way of a living town, but as a single, conscious entity, breathing slowly through stone, wood, and fog. Chapter 4. The Spectral Lights. Beyond the square, I discovered a stream so still it appeared like black glass, stretching into the forest. Above it hovered faint, flickering lights, fireflies perhaps, yet too large, deliberate, and unnervingly precise. They wove intricate patterns in the air, forming constellations that did not belong to this world. Each pulse of light seemed to draw me closer, inviting yet threatening, as though the very forest conspired to test my resolve. The fog thickened, forming phantoms that mimicked the shapes of the villagers in fleeting glimpses. I glimpsed scenes of past horrors, a family vanishing into the mist, a child reaching for something unseen, a bell tolling, without a bell to strike it. Every vision faded as soon as I focused, leaving only the faint echo of despair. The village's ruin and the spectral lights felt intertwined, a ritual of memory and madness performed for no audience but the wandering traveler. Time seemed meaningless. The village reappeared again and again in distorted forms, streets looping impossibly, houses doubled, shadows multiplied. I began to question whether I had truly left, or if I had been swallowed entirely by this liminal world, a plaything for something ancient and indifferent, waiting beyond the mists and the mountains. Chapter 5. Return or Oblivion. At last, the first weak light of dawn penetrated the fog, and I found myself at the edge of the mountains, the village nowhere in sight. The path I had followed seemed solid, tangible, yet the memories of that night clung to me like a second skin. I carried the whispers of stone and timber, the flickering lights, the sense of eyes in the shadows, and the knowledge that the village had not been a place as we understand it, but a threshold, a prison, and a trap. Even now, long after my journey, I hear the faint creaking of branches in windless nights, the soft rush of invisible water, the murmurs of souls caught between worlds. Somewhere in the Carpathians, the village waits, patient and eternal, its doors open for the next wanderer drawn by curiosity or folly. And I know that those who enter may never truly leave, For the village does not merely exist, it persists, quietly, endlessly, in a reality that refuses the bounds of human reason.